Well, hello again, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Carpo's Rambles. I'm your host, Carpo. This afternoon, I have a few thoughts on my mind, but I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to make a video about today. There are a lot of things going through my mind lately, and I've noticed myself becoming a little bit, what's the word I guess I'm looking for? I wouldn't say, it's a type of melancholy. It's not depression, it's not melancholy. Maybe it's a combination of a lack of motivation and an unsure as to where I want to go now. And with, let's just say recent events, for example, with the whole DEA kratom ban. I mean, I just got my business off the ground. I've been going for about a year, and then I'm at this point now where I'm kind of, what's going to happen next? Trying to start over with my nootropic blend and trying to market that at the same time as keeping kratom in stock, and then I end up getting flustered and confused. All the while remaining calm and realizing that I'm not going to get tied into it. In the past, when I was a carpenter, I would work at a variety of different, job sites on a whole bunch of different projects, and sometimes I would go home and become flustered in the middle of the night. I'd wake up and think, oh, how am I going to finish this without messing something up, or, and everything would be fine in the end. And I guess over time, that's where I learned to control my anxiety, was to have no expectations, and to just take everything as it comes. When you don't expect anything out of yourself, and you don't have to live up to society's expectations, then you learn to just cope. And you learn that life is a mess sometimes, but that it's beautiful in that messiness. The more you start to see the balances, the checks and balances of nature, and the little jokes and hints it throws your way, even if you're deluded in thinking a lot of these things, for example, taking on a personal connection with the universe, to say, well, the universe is aware of me, let's say. And that's a bold step, a giant leap between saying, well, I either, a person who says they're not religious or doesn't believe in God, or a person who, claims that they do. In between, there are people who say, well, the universe maybe have a mind and I believe that it responds. And all these experiments, all these scientific experiments that have shown how, the brain is activated before you even see a picture. Let's say they were showing pictures to the people, and 6 seconds before they would show a bad picture, their brain would activate as if, with the scan, as if they had seen the picture already. And the question becomes, well, maybe it was the scientists themselves who were aware of the picture and implanting that into the minds. Whatever it may be, that people seem to react to things from the future. And I'm only throwing that in to try to make an example of everything is happening right now. The idea of Akasha and all the records of everything that's ever happened, it really helps to explain a lot of the psychic happenings and what a lot of people consider like to be a tear in reality, if you will, what we consider reality. You see, I don't believe in the supernatural. I believe in the natural. And anything that's beyond what we understand already, we put it in another category, but it's not. It's all one part of the same universe, if you will. Whether you believe in multiverse or, whatnot, that's irrelevant. The idea that everything that happens because it happens. There's nothing above and beyond nature, well, as far as we know, because nature is all-inclusive. And that's a difficult one, I guess, to express, but it's hard enough to live your life and to try to work and function. And let's say, you may be responsible for yourself and have to feed yourself. But if you have a wife and kids, if you have a family, that's double the burden because you're providing for other people. And it's not that you hate doing it because it's completely rewarding. It's just that you're obligated to yourself and to others, and then to, say, society through taxes or whatnot, whatever we've been imposed to do. And then we have our families who expect certain things of us. For example, go visit the family on a certain holiday, and maybe you don't want to go. I mean, how many people really say, oh, this is going to be super fun and exciting? It's always like, well, somebody's going to argue, or so-and-so will be drunk, and it's not always like that. But my point is that we cope with one another, and we cope with situations because we love one another, and because we care about each other. And, I've been really thinking today about exactly, how can we reconcile all being so different and having different views? and make that work, because there are some real assholes out there. I mean, there are some really pushy jerks out there who want you to believe what they believe. They may be strongly politically influenced or religious or otherwise, and may have completely different values from your own. And we have to live with those people. And so what I've been trying to reconcile today is, how do we go about our lives? And when we have a cognitive dissonance, on one hand, I would like to take my family and run for the hills, metaphorically, to, have my own place kind of out away from the city, and to not partake in society's games and nonsense, and to let it destroy itself, because there are people out there who just seem to care about only themselves, and it becomes frustrating, so it's better to just walk away. Well, then there's the other side of me that says no. It's just like, you don't leave your country because you don't like what it's become. You fight for what you believe to be right, and that's why it's not a love it or leave it, it's a love it or fix it type attitude. It's like, if you don't love your car, then you clean it and you fix it up to where you like it, and it runs right, And this is important with relationships too. If you don't like where you're going with your spouse, with your kids, with your mother, father, cousin, whatever, it's up to both of you. It takes two to tango, as they say, and both of you have to work on that relationship. But ultimately, we ask ourselves, why at all? Why do we want to mend a relationship? Why do we even care? It's because we want people in our lives, and that's what I'm trying to get at. The root of this discussion is that we all want people in our lives, but at the same time, we want to escape and just walk away from all the nonsense and all the idiots out there. I've learned to cope with people's differences in opinion, but of course I still get confronted with a variety of different ideas. Seems like freshly after the new year here, there have been quite a few people, all within a couple days, who have seemed to have some kind of an issue with one thing or another, whether it be on a comment section somewhere or, one of my videos. But like I mentioned the other day, there was a Jehovah's Witness one I made a while back where I was saying, hey, they came to knock on my door and they didn't even have what I was asking as far as information. And then, of course, a person said, well, we can give you the information. I can give you a Bible study and yada yada. And I was like, no, I don't think you really understood what I was saying. The message wasn't that I needed to learn it. It was that I already knew, but she didn't, and I was surprised. And I'm surprised that people are so adamant about pushing their religion on other people. But at the same time, I can understand it. Like, if you believe something strongly enough, you believe others should know it. That's great. The only problem is that within that lies a looking down upon those who have different beliefs. As in, well, you either believe what I believe, or you're going to suffer. Now, in the long run, I would say, fine. Believe what you want to believe and go about your life. But unfortunately, these things creep into our schools. They creep into our politics. And so those of us who are just trying to be critical, rational thinkers are forced into a box where we're said, oh, you don't have any heart, you don't have any God, you don't have any whatever it might be. The people who say we've become a godless society merely because we don't believe what certain people believe and how they believe it. And then it gets into the circular reasoning, history and books and gods. And it's just like you want to shake your head sometimes and just walk away from it all, Like, why do we have to be immersed in this? So it's like, I understand it and I cope with it, but I don't have to completely accept it. I can tolerate it, I can understand it, but I don't have to accept it for what it is. In other words, we can have a better world and a better future if people were a little, if whatever they chose to believe and whatever we choose to believe, because I know that I'm sure I affect people negatively by some of the way I act. I can be stubborn, I can be a little bit, pushy. I wouldn't say pushy, I would say I can be stubborn. I can be very, confrontational and resistant in a conversation where I believe that I know more about a subject or something, when I get into this with whoever I'm talking with, whether it be on YouTube or my own mom. And it's because that's part of who I am. And I understand that to be an intense person, there's side effects that come with that. Let me give a metaphor. The psychedelic experience, taking a journey on LSD, let's say. to me, the hallucinations are often a byproduct of the experience, as well as some of the negative feelings that I may get at the beginning. Not everybody does this or feels this way, but when I take psychedelics or MDMA, I go into what I call my chrysalis, which is my metamorphosis, where about an hour after I take it, I kind of sit on my own and I kind of go into my own world for about an hour or so, and sometimes even longer, and I really don't even come out of it for a few hours on LSD, and then I'm fresh and I'm able to process things. And this is because my brain is, it's working. It's like a computer processing. You know, you're waiting for it to buffer, if you will. Buffer into a new way of thinking. And I understand that's part of the process. Everything has a buffer time. Society has a buffer time to where we're going to be able to actually process all this information that we're given. And we're being bombarded with all this nonsense about, you know, a variety of religions, as well as the flat earth, you know, theories, which on a video I made a comment on the other day. It was Gabriel Kundalini. I used to watch his videos, and he hadn't uploaded one in a while, and he posted the first one in like quite a while on his channel, and it was about flat earthers. And I know that that's a very attractive subject because people are obsessed with that right now. And within a couple hours, he had like, you know, 100 thumbs down or something, because people, they don't want to hear that they're wrong. And these flat earthers I use as an example because they're very intent about what they believe. And throughout all of this, and believe me, I have dug into it. I heard about it 2 decades ago. It's not something new. The basic idea that spheres tend to be the dominant shape in the universe. In other words, asteroids, comets, the sun, the moon, everything takes on a spherical shape because, well, regardless of whether you believe in gravity or not, we know that it pulls matter together. So we get into all these technical details and it doesn't matter to people. And that's why I use that example. You can throw out all the facts and figures at a person and they don't care. They don't want to hear it. Anything that goes against what they believe, they just say, well, it's a NASA lie or it's a conspiracy. So I'm using this example to say, why? What would be the point in wasting energy trying to prove that the Earth is flat or round? I mean, obviously, we want to know if it's round so we can circumnavigate the globe, so we can set up our GPS systems, which GPS is always an interesting one. I've asked people in the flat Earth community, like, why does GPS work out in the middle of the ocean? Because they talk about these relay stations. I mean, they create this entire reality to support their case. This is just one small group who reflects a problem all the way across society. We use a small group to back up what we want to believe. Now, when I mentioned the Jehovah's Witness guy earlier, one thing that he said, because I asked him, I said, you know, after we discussed it for a while, I said, I just have to ask, have you read the Bhagavad Gita or the Kabbalah, or have you looked into any Zen, you know, writings? And I said, you know, I was saying it kindly, I wasn't being rude, but I was saying, you know, you owe it to yourself to look at these texts, and because it's important to get a rounded view. Then you can go back and decide whether what you want to believe is true or not. And, you know, it's not going to hurt to look at these other things. And then I just left one last sentence on there. I said, have you looked at the other religions? And he said, no, I have not. That was right off the bat. He said, but I have friends who are in the Kingdom Hall who have read those books, and they've told me that they're not the one true religion. And this was a basic reinforcement for everything our entire discussion had been. I said that I'm trying to explain why there's nothing wrong with reading the Bible, but if you're only believing it because of what others told you, then you're missing the point. Like, I get into detail on it, you know. I say if you can't read Hebrew, then it's difficult to understand the true meaning of the Bible. Because the Hebrew language was more than just characters. The Hebrew language was amazing. I mean, I got into, I think it was the Taro of the Bohemians, which is what set me off on this tangent about, you know, about Hebrew and the way that the language and the letters go together and what the meanings behind them were, that there's so much more than meets the eye when you can read into the original languages that these things were written in. And I'm not here dismissing the Bible, because actually I've grown to respect it over the last, say, 5 years, a lot more than I did before. If nothing else, because, wow, it really has been able to hold its own through all these years. I know that the Crusades kind of forced it on a lot of people. People in, say, Latin America, you know, folks in Mexico. Why are there so many Christians and Catholics all through there? because of Columbus, not Columbus, but what was his name? Oh God, I can't remember off the minute. The conquistadors, anyhow, they come in there and they spread their religion and they wipe out the traditional religions, eliminate their sacraments, and make it illegal to consume peyote or mushrooms. And to this day, that still exists in this land, in this area. And people like me who believe that taking psilocybin mushrooms or mescaline will help me to acquire a better understanding of myself and my world and get me closer to what I consider God, that's considered to be forbidden fruit because it doesn't coincide with what others believe. And I'm not angry about it. I'm understanding about it. There is a lot of anger about religion and how people have to cope with others' beliefs and how it harms people. But I really try to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, you know? I have nothing wrong with religion. And it was, I think, Manly P. Hall, after listening to hundreds of hours of his lectures, it was when he said that religion's not the problem, dogma is. And if a person wants to have faith, so be it. It's just when that faith says, well, what I believe may be true is true, and what you believe may be true is not true, because of what I've been told or what I've read. And I think that each individual in his heart can stop and ask himself, on his own time, do I really feel in my heart that what I think is right or what I'm doing is right? And this is how we go off on intuitional tangents, you know. We start following our instinct for a while. I'm going to make sure that the camera's still going. It is still going. But back to the idea that why do people have to be such assholes? You know, why do we have to be surrounded by so many morons? It's really hard to know when to just let it all go. And, you know, because like I said the other day, you know, I'm a peaceful, easygoing guy, but I know when to say fuck off. I know when to stand up for myself. And I've gone through different phases. When I was younger, I was very outspoken. Say anything I don't agree with, fuck you. I wasn't harsh, but I was just, you know, I didn't bite my tongue as much because I saw no reason to. And then I got to a point about 5 years ago where I went through this kind of love and light stage, where I was really into this idea that we are spiritual beings, we're creatures. It was during the time when I got into, like, I watched The Secret and a bunch of other things like that, and I said, we can manifest our reality. And I realized that if I feel a certain way and act a certain way, I really do feel better. There is truth to it. But it's different manifesting a boat or a mansion, or to manifest what you really want, which is, it all missed the mark when they talked about, you know, you can have anything you want. What they forgot to mention was that what you really want to want is nothing. It's the lack of attachment that makes us complete and whole. But I took it to the point where I almost wanted to eliminate all attachment. And now I realize, no, not at all. You have to have your possessions, your friends, your family. There's nothing wrong with having stuff. Just let it come and go. Just like a bad thought in your mind, let it come and go. Don't fight it. If you feel anger, let it come into your brain, process it, and let it go. The more you practice doing this, the faster you can do it. There were times when I was younger where I might get angry at someone and wake up in the next day and think, God, that pisses me off that they did that. That never happens to me now. I never hold resentment. If somebody really makes me angry or they're really harsh and rude, you know, a couple hours later I might be like, God, that guy's a dick. But I'm not going to like hold it and build anger, because I will not let my body be damaged by bad signals from my brain, because I'm the only one that's harmed. So when you're sitting there screaming at people, when you're telling them they're wrong, when you're telling them they're crooked and that they're evil or they're going to hell, all these things, you're the one who's paying the price and suffering. Your body is suffering. Doing each other wrong or saying things wrong to each other is a form of self-punishment. And I would like to mention as one last thing, it's because in a comment I made the other day, Sharon, one of my subs, mentioned that I was talking about, you know, should Facebook edit free speech if people want to say hateful things? Should that be edited? It's a touchy subject because we want a respectable society, but we also want people to be able to say what they want. And she said that it should be okay to say what you like as long as it's not hate speech. And I wanted to say I really thought about that a lot and realized that, you know, hate speech, we in our modern PC community here, we think that we have to be politically correct about everything. So hate speech could be simply making a joke about people in wheelchairs. I mean, it really could be taken to any level. So what I wanted to say is, if people want to speak out and be rude and be hateful, it's not that I accept that or think it's okay. I just say that we as a society have no reason to edit those people, but rather to tell them how we feel and to put them in their place. To not ignore people when we see them casting stones at others or harming someone lesser. That we really do stand up for one another when we can. Because I know there's a lot of people who want to seem strong out there, but that are really weak and really can't stand up for themselves. And they may say, screw you, I don't care. But in our hearts, we all care. Nobody wants to be dismissed or hated by anyone. We all have a desire to be loved, to be accepted, and to be needed. Okay? And that's a big one a lot of people leave out. When we leave and go off on our own, we can still be loved by a family or be accepted, but if we're not needed, we have to make ourselves needed, damn it. And that's when we want to go out in the world and start changing things and helping people. And you take it too far and you end up, well, you end up wherever you end up. To each his own. And I just hope everyone has a great day, and you know where I'm coming from. People are people. Up and down, back and forth. I don't know exactly what tomorrow will bring, but I'm willing to ride with the tides. Namaste. Talk to y'all later.